Hello and welcome everybody to the season opener for the ORL F1 Split A Season 14. And today we are having something a little bit different here for the opening of the season. We are at the US GP Short Circuit, which I'm sure some of these drivers will be a bit less familiar with than they would usually be. And we're also going to be having an 100% race as well because the circuit is that much shorter. So we're going to have probably a bit of a test on the vocal cords for us in the commentary box as well. My name is Jacob Hancock, and alongside me today is Mac.
Yeah, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, from me too, of course. And yeah, I think we're looking to an interesting race here. We got a few bits and pieces cut out from the American GP, but most of the track is still there as we know it. But yeah, as you said, will be kind of interesting because most of the players don't really play those short tracks. Maybe just a bit for fun and in between the real racing, but not really in this competitive way, and especially not as a 100% race.
Yeah, for sure. So kind of two different things, really. Putting the cat amongst the pigeons here, just the fact that it's 100% and the fact that it's a track that they won't be all that familiar with. I did actually notice I hopped on time trials just before the race began. And I did notice that pretty much everyone in the top 20, 30 on the time trials were participators in ORL, either Split A or Split B. So they have been practicing at least in the time trials. And I'm trying to remember who was top of the order. I think it was Alvaro Caraton, actually, who was top of the order. He is here today, representing the Williams team. And as you can see, quite a few famous names here joining us once again. Quite a few ex and current F1 esports drivers, as well as some very fast guys from Split B last season. Patrick Kruijs, speaking of ex F1 drivers, goes to the top of the order. The Polish driver in the Mercedes at the very top there, ahead of Sven Zerner and Daniele Haddad at the beginning of qualifying.
Yeah, exactly. And we just see the timings being basically the same. So all of the guys have been practicing and have nailed it down. Maybe, or I hope so. I think so. The next times will be going into the high 1.3s. There we go. As we talk about with Photon taking the top spot. But yeah, there will be steady improvement for sure on those times. But I've also seen already a lot of invalidations, and I think that's, well, a thing that's really usual about America, because we just got this fast S section where you basically have just inches or even less which decide of having the lap invalidated, and maybe the game is even wrong for invalidating your lap. So yeah, but we'll have that count. I mean, they're all racing with the same game, so basically everyone gets penalized for the same. So it's kind of fair in the end again.
Yeah, and speaking of getting penalized, Danny Berezhny on his first attempt at a flying lap here in qualifying just cut what would usually be turn 11, I believe, on the main circuit. I do not know which turn number it is around the short circuit, I'm afraid. But Danny Berezhny, it would be the tight left-hander at the end of the long back straight if we're in normal circuit of the Americas. Danny Berezhny cut that corner, and as a result, he's had to back out of this lap, so he's probably going to have to go again. Let's take a look at Alvaro Caraton in the Williams. The Spaniard, as I mentioned, looking good in time trials at least, although time trials can definitely be deceptive. It's a very different matter when you get into qualifying and then to the race itself, of course. But a purple sector through sector 2 as he heads through the triple right-hander into the fast couple of left-handers at the end of the lap. One of the easiest places to invalidate, but he just about keeps two of his tyres on the tarmac. Through the final corner, same story, up towards the line, and it's good enough for third. Bench Jabo Konyi has moved himself up into first, of course, in the Renault. Patrick Kruijs second, Alvaro Caraton in third, and then Zones, the Polish driver in the Renault, in fourth. That's a good showing from him, actually, ahead of the likes of Sven Zerner and Daniele Haddad at this very early stage.
Exactly. And can you have did you have a glance on the times back then in time trial? Well, we know that they're not that reachable in qualifying, but in this high esports level, they're just a few tenths off of this time.
Yeah, I seem to remember they were sort of doing the high 103s, but I wouldn't quote me on that. I didn't. I mainly just checked to see the order rather than actually checking to see the times. But yeah, quite a lot of drivers out on track. Very busy circuit, as you can probably see on the mini-map in the bottom right there. A lot of drivers all over the place right now, as you would expect on such a miniature circuit as this one. And thinking about the circuit a little more, it is going to be interesting because the main overtaking opportunity at Circuit of the Americas is usually turn 11 at the end of that big back straight. But here, you don't have that long back straight. You have a very short straight before that corner. So it's going to be a lot on moves into turn 1 as the biggest opportunity for overtaking here. And I do wonder if we're going to struggle to see as much overtaking given the circuit layout here. It's a lot smaller, a lot tighter, and a lot twistier, per kilometer, as it were, than you would get with the usual circuit. So we might well see some struggles in terms of overtaking, though I'm sure these drivers will be able to deploy the ERS to the perfect amounts and try and battle with one another throughout the race. And of course, with a 100% race, there's sort of all the more opportunity for tires to fall off cliffs and so on. So it's going to be harder for the drivers to drive with that level of consistency that we usually see throughout the whole of an 100% race.
Exactly. And having, for example, also sector 1 and 2, those fast left and right kings, you can't overtake there. And well, then we go onto the straight, which is just cut in half, and there's no DRS zone, so we got no real overtaking opportunity, as you said there. And then the following corners, I think 12 to 15 in the original layout. You have to be really committed to overtake there, because those are pretty tricky corners. Then of course the long right-hander, well, you don't have really a braking spot there, so overtaking is just possible via being way faster than your opponent, so he has to make a mistake. And then the last 2 corners would maybe give you an opportunity through the fast right-hander if you're a bit quicker and can set your car alongside your opponents. But it's also just a might and not a that works.
Yeah, it's certainly not a guarantee, that much is for sure. And Zones right now is just starting a flying lap, having had to abort the previous one as a result of an invalidation. So let's see what the Renault driver can do. It was a great lap for the first lap of qualifying. Let's see if the Polish driver can make good on the promise and continue to move up the order with this one. He's narrowly up on his best time through Sector 1, which is basically just a corner and a half, really, through the S section and into this little sort of Mickey Mouse chicane at the back of the circuit here, onto what would usually be the second half of the back straight, or taking this left-hander. It's very easy to cut there, and in fact, he looked like he did, but he's managed to avoid invalidation there, so nicely done. Probably done to perfection there by the Renault driver, although there was a bit of a lock-up into this sort of, what for my money is the hardest part of the track. This left-hander in particular, off-camber, very, very difficult indeed. Into the triple right-hander we go, and he's down just about 1/10 of a second on his current best time. So not seeing a whole lot of track improvement out there, perhaps, as he's really committed through the penultimate corner there. Into the final corner we go. Maybe not quite meeting the apex, running wide on the exit as well. That is not going to be any faster, although he actually did come close to being faster despite that mistake in the final corner. So there's probably still quite a lot of time left in that lap for Zones, and he could be looking at a sort of somewhere in the low or in the high 103s.
Yeah, somewhere there. He's for sure be located. I mean, last thing really cost him more time than brought him something. He would have needed to take this one more like a normal corner, to actually gain time through this, but I think then the game would have penalized it. And we got Sven Zerner up into second. I think that was the update up there, just with a 104.003, so just over the 104 mark. Nobody except Sabukonyi yet in the 103, so nobody has really nailed their lap down.
Indeed, yeah, the Hungarian in the Renault looking solid at this stage of qualifying. Sven Zerner indeed up to second, as you mentioned, in the Alpha Tauri, and of course was a reserve driver in Split A last season, managed a podium. I think he only participated in 2 or 3 races in that season, but he did manage to get that one podium. He'll be hoping to make that a second podium in ORL here today, as he will be expecting that, I'm sure, but I'm sure a lot of the drivers will be expecting great things of themselves, as they are very high achievers indeed. Danny Berezne just came across the line there to the tune of a 103.992, making him the second driver into the 103s, but only just, and still not enough to get rid of his countryman at the very top of the standings. So Ben Sabukonyi still looking really good there right now. In fact, Danny Berezne has gone for a second push lap in a row by the look of things. Either that, or he's just trying to hot foot it back to the pits to get back as quickly as possible. He has now backed out of the corner, though, and or backed out of the lap, I should say, and he will not be completing this one at any sort of speed. But nevertheless, up into second is a decent effort from a mainstay of the F1 esports series.
And I've just taken a look at Alessio Di Capua, who's just setting fastest sector 2 time, and he has not set a time yet, but he made quite a good entry into the... Ooh, that was a quite big moment there. Into the league last season, and let's see what he gets. Wasn't there? No, I think was it invalidated just in the last few corners?
Yeah, he
I think it
invalidated
was.
there when he made the mistake into the penultimate corner. He invalidated once again, and that is at least the third invalidation of qualifying thus far for Alessio Di Capua. So he's not been able to string a lap together. He is the only driver who is yet to be able to string even one decent lap together, although there's a fair few who have been struggling, who have only managed one sort of banker lap thus far. Mateusz Vipic, Donny Tormala, people towards the back of the order that we wouldn't necessarily expect to see back there. Tom 97 as well, after a very solid finish to the previous season in Split A, managing a podium in the season finale at Abu Dhabi. So he'll be expecting to qualify better than 14th here on the short circuit. He did mention that the main circuit at USA wasn't necessarily one of his favorite tracks last season. He didn't really have a good setup for it, but of course, the short circuit, a bit of a different prospect and still struggling with it at the moment. Mateusz Vipic in the second of the double Polish Mercedes is coming through the final corner right now, and he was about 4/10 up on his previous best lap time. Someone just moved up the order. That was Andy into 4th. Vipic only good enough for 11th this time
Look
around.
at this, Andy even exactly with the same time as Sven Zerner. He got a 1:04.003 as Sven did, but of course if you get this time just as the second one, you get of course one spot behind the other one. So that's
cracking laps from Andy though. Someone who was in Split B last season as well, so definitely stepping up here for the opening round of Split A.
Yeah. I think even we got this once. I think there were 3 drivers with actually exact the same time. But I'm not sure. I think I remember something that this qualifying was aborted in the end or something was buggy. I'm not sure anymore. But there were 3 drivers with the exact same time on the screen. That was interesting.
Indeed, and Patrick Kreutsch is actually looking to go a bit faster now as well in the current lead of the 2 Mercedes. Oh, takes a bit too much curb through the penultimate corner there, though, so he might struggle to improve. He was up about a 10th on his previous best lap time. He wants to go ahead of that pairing of Andy and Sven Zerner, and he can't quite do it. Lost too much time in the penultimate corner that time around. And in fact, I think he invalidated that lap and this lap as well. So he's going to have to come back into the pits again and strap on another set of tyres if he wants to go any faster in this qualifying session. It really is pedal to the metal stuff for all these drivers right now. It's just lap after lap on these soft tyres. No one trying any other set of tyres whatsoever. And just people constantly out there doing lap after lap after lap. Let's see what Floris Wires is doing. The Dutchman in the Haas, currently sitting down in P12. He would want to be a little bit higher up the order than that as he heads through the S section and cuts on the final corner of the S section. And as a result, we'll have to back out of this one as well. What's Donny Tormala doing in the Alpha Tauri? He's only managed 1 decent lap time thus far. I believe he's on a push lap right now, though it looked pretty calm through the off-camber left-hander, but he is still about half a second up on his previous best lap time. So he's looking to mix it with the top 10 at the very least here. If he can improve by the same amount in the final sector, he should be looking to go right up towards the top. Speaking of the very top, that's Danny Berejne into first. Donny Tormala comes across the line, and it's only good enough for 10th, a 1:04.128.
Yeah, the time table got really close. We got basically... It's just the first 2 that are into the 1-3s, and now we've got everyone from 3rd, kind of until to 10th, in this just 2/10. Oh! And Johnny Turma just had a big moment at the end of the quick S's, catching his car back. Yeah, was a good lap, but it's just not enough. It's just about 10th at this point. It's just about having the real perfect lap. It's not about making mistakes anymore. It's about making the lap perfect. Basically, you did no mistakes, and you still are not in the top 10.
Indeed, yeah. And someone who is currently sitting in the top 10 right now in 8th, Matthias Collegon, the Frenchman in the McLaren, locked up there into turn 1 though, so he's already down. He's going to be down a little bit come the end of sector 1 here, only by a smidgen though, so he might be able to improve as long as he can nail the S section here, and then of course the final sector of the lap as well. the back section. He cuts the corner and will have to back out once again. This is going to be a big problem in the race, you have to feel as well. A lot of corner cutting coming through from these drivers in qualifying. And if they continue this in the race, given that we have an 100% race, we're probably going to be seeing an awful lot of time penalties. Maybe even a couple of disqualifications, dare I say? Hopefully not. But it's definitely a possibility right now, given the amount of laps these guys will have to be doing around here.
Yeah, exactly, and that's really the problem about it, and that will really cost some people the race, as we've seen it a lot in B-Split, that you're just losing out due to penalties. There have been a lot of wins on track, but in the end, you'll then just be second on the podium.
1 minute left in qualifying now. Alvaro Carreton rounding the final corner. The Spaniard will want to improve, and he does so up into third. Going to be a fair few drivers coming across the line following him along. There's one of the Alpha Tauris coming through. That's going to be Sven Zerner across the line, but he is going slowly. No improvement from him. Mateusz Vipic not able to improve either, nor are either of the racing points right now. Daniele Haddad will be on a flying lap, but he has invalidated. Tom 97 is going again as well after invalidating his previous attempt. Ben Chabot-Cogny has also had to back out of his lap time. Every time I look at a different driver, they've all backed out of their laps due to corner cutting. Andy is the same. So Danny Berezne is going to be feeling pretty good right now, even though he's in the pits with only 20 seconds remaining in this qualifying session. So he will not be improving, and indeed he retires. But he reckons that'll be good enough for pole position. Is he right or is he wrong? Let's find out. All the rest of the drivers here, all the other 17 will be looking to prove him wrong. But will any of them be able to even string a lap together to do so?
No, I'm just switching through, and the next one is Julian, who hasn't invalidated from the top 9.
Oh, and that's may as well be an invalidation there for Julian, as he almost loses the car there in the traction zone. Zones, Matthias Collegon and Joni Tormala will not be able to improve any further. They are 7th, 8th, and 10th respectively as things stand. Alvaro Carreton and Sven Zerner back into the pits. What's Ben Chabot-Cogny doing? Is he pushing? No, he's had to back out of his lap. Andonator's had to back out of his as well. Patrick Crouch, same story. It's all just a comedy of errors at the very end of qualifying here. Here comes Daniele Haddad across the line, and it's up in a second. It's close, but it's not close enough. Floris Wires is out there pushing. He is probably the last driver who can look to challenge the top of the order now as he comes through the final corner and up towards the line in the Haas. Where is this going to put him? It's good enough for 6th, but only 6th. Gets into the 103s, but is the slowest of the drivers to do so. And with that, I believe qualifying has come to its end.
So in the end, we've got quite a tight grid, and we know all the drivers are quite close together. But I think this race will be all about consistency and all about keeping it together over 1.5 hours. I don't know how many laps we're going to go on. I think it's about something like 90 or a bit less, like 80, 70, 87 or something. I would, maybe just 80, but it should be really much.
For sure, yeah. It's
something
like
Austria,
the Bahrain short circuit, the
or
sort
that
of false oval we saw last season as well. It might be a bit similar to that one with the amount of laps we're going to see here.
Yeah, exactly. Or I think Austria comes also pretty close, especially from the times. Because in Bahrain we've got even times lower than the 1 minute mark, so that was crazy.
Indeed, yeah. I mean, the times they are around the sort of level of Austria that we'd be seeing, but there are some slower corners around here. So I think in terms of distance, this might actually be a fair few more laps, but we will wait and see. But as things are in qualifying, it is Danny Berezne who takes the top spot, perhaps unsurprisingly, in the Alfa Romeo. And then Daniele Haddad managing P2. Great lap from him at the very end of qualifying there. Lucas UK up in 3rd in the Red Bull. He snuck up there. Ben Chabot-Cogny 4th. Alvaro Carreton in 5th. Floris Wires in 6th, making rounding out all the drivers who managed to get into the 103s. The rest of the field very, very close together in the low 104s. I'm not sure anyone had a lap time slower than a 104.5 at the end of qualifying.
No, I don't think. I think there were everyone was in lower than the one. Oh no, I wanted to say the exact same thing as you. I just understood the 105. So yeah, those drivers are pretty close match. As we've seen, the first 6 are in the 131 mark, and then the next one are, like, I think basically all of the grid is lower than the 0.2 mark, 402. I think they were just a few times over it.
Yeah, and with the amount of invalidations we saw as well, you got to feel there's going to be about 18 drivers, to be honest, who feel they could have gone faster. Maybe Danny Berejne might be happy with his lap, but the rest of them will all be thinking, oh, there was this one lap, I was 2/10 up, and then I invalidated, or, you know, all this sort of thing.
Yeah.
Or I knew if I got one more chance, I'd have just been able to nail it. And there's going to be a lot of very frustrated drivers in the pack after that qualifying, and hopefully they won't let their frustrations get the better of them once we get into the races. We are now on to the formation lap for the season opener of ORL Split A Season 14 here for the US Grand Prix short. And only one driver outside of the top 10 opting to start on those softs, despite the fact everyone was very, very willing to use them in qualifying. And that is Arsen Kardinov starting down in 15th, who has actually been disqualified from the formation lap along with Tom 97, so they must have come together. And that's not going to help either of them off the line. But the rest of the drivers outside of the top 10, and in fact Matthias Collegon, we're going to be starting on those medium tires.
So in the meantime, I'll maybe just show a bit what the current driver standing setup shows, the teams. So we've got Whippich and Crucci in the Mercedes to Poland, I think?
Yep.
Exactly, to Polish driver. Then Di Capua and Andy in the Ferrari. Lewis and Kardinov in the Red Bull. Timo and Marduk here in the Lissus Daily. Collegan both in the McLaren. Then we've got Zerno and Tormola in the AlphaTauri. Ate and Ate and Savakani in the Renault. Berezne and Chris in the Alfa Romeo. Haddad and Tom in the Racing Point. Weers and Gedond in the Haas, and Caraton and Paris in the Williams. Of course, there are some drivers missing, but this should be the main driver setup. Now, I think Tom is replacing somebody, but I've got no information about who he replaced.
I think Zones is here in place of Ate at the very least. I think Tom is a regular driver, but as we are now lining up on the grid here with the 18 drivers we have here today and a field of quite some caliber. It is Danny Berejne versus Daniele Haddad lining up at the front of the grid. Lucas UK and Ben Chabukonyi on the second row. And now here come the lights for the first time in season 14 for ORL. The lights go out and we are underway, and it looks like a clean start off the line for Danny Berezne. Lucas UK struggled off the line, and now he's looking to shut off Ben Zabukonyi up towards turn 1. And there is a Williams diving between the two of them. That's Alvaro Caraton pushing the Red Bull wide. Lucas falling down into 5th. Caraton's looking to take Ben Zabukonyi as well. And then maybe Daniele Haddad, but no, he has to back out of that one. Danny Berezne leading cleanly off the line from Daniele Haddad. Alvaro Caraton, what a move on the opening lap from him. Further behind, that's Lucas UK and Sven Zerner going side by side. But Lucas will not be mugged by yet another driver on the first lap this time, and Sven Zerner will have to settle for 6th. Floris Wires in 7th with Andy and Patrick Crouch behind. But at the front, it is Danny Berezne leading.
That was a really amazing start from Alvaro Caraton, just breaking, basically sandwiching himself through those two cars. But yeah, amazing move to get up there. Of course, not a good start from Lucas UK. But we've seen also Danny taking a pretty comfortable lead there, going very, very comfortable into turn 1, just turning completely in, but I think he knew that no one was besides him, so he was safe there.
Zones into the pit already. The Renault driver evidently picking up front wing damage. Here comes Andy looking to take the place back on Patrick Crouch, who took it into the final corner. Into turn 1 we go. Andy cannot hang it around the outside, and that will be Crouch up into that position as the timing board sorts itself out. I believe that's 8th position that the Polish driver has just taken away from the German there once we see it sorting itself out. Danny Berezne still leading from the front with Daniele Haddad falling perilously far behind already at this very early stage. He will not want to fall out of DRS range before DRS even becomes available. Alvaro Caraton in 3rd with Ben Chabukonyi in 4th. There's a driver off the road in the background. I think that was Crouch. He's managed to hold on to the car just about okay.
I think it was Julian. Crouch is still before Andy. Julian got a bit of trouble now with Collegan.
And a spin. More trouble now as well. That's Matthias Collegon into the side of him through the off-camber left-hander. And now they're being swamped by all kinds of drivers. Vipic, Alessio Di Capua, Arsen Kardinov all coming through there. Arsen's had a poor start down into 13th. Or in fact, up into 13th, I should say, having started in 15th. and now he's looking to try and take Alessio Di Capua and Matthias Vipic as well. Vipic, the first of the drivers to pick up a penalty, but that's a 5-second time penalty for corner cutting and gaining a place. So I think he might, well, he'd love to be able to appeal that one after the race, but he's going to have to serve that one in the pit, so unfortunate for him. And it's about to get even worse, as up the inside goes Alessio Di Capua, the Polish driver in the Mercedes, trying to get back at him around the outside of turn 2, but he cannot do it. And Alessio moving up into 11th, looking to close down Joni Tormala, who's been able to build a bit of a gap down to the rest of the medium tyre runners.
Exactly, well, basically, but most of the battling happening now at the complete end of the grid. Last few drivers, I mean, zones is not really close enough, but here we go, an overtake from Arsen, but it was not, he was locking up through the corner, so Matthias got the better exit. And now going through the next few, he could make it in front. But let's see how long this will stay as it is now. We are just approaching the last 2 corners and then going into the main straight again, where, as we know, the main overtaking opportunity is. And for sure, Arsen wants to get back, but Di Capua kind of got a bit of a gap now. Of course, the DRS is going to cut that down, but... or is it? Yeah, now it is. Now the DRS has really become effective, but he's not at all in range to even try and overtake.
Indeed, yeah. And further up the order, Sven Zern has been having a couple of lunges at Lucas UK and the sister team, the Alpha Tauri, having a go at the Red Bull, but not able to get past. Frustrated is the German in 6th. You have to feel right now. I don't think he got everything he would have wanted out of qualifying there, and he does not want to be stuck behind Lucas UK. Ben Sabo-Conye is also just about falling outside a DRS range of Alvaro Caraton, so it looks like the 3 drivers at the very front might be looking to drive away from the rest of the field in the early stages here. That is Berezne, Haddad, and Caraton. Ben Sabo-Conye down into 4th, Lucas UK in 5th, but Ben Sabo-Conye has managed to close that gap back down to about 8.5 tenths of a second, so he might not fall out of DRS range quite yet. And it's critical for him that he does remain in that zone for the time being. Arsene Kardanov, of course, on those soft tyres will be looking to make further moves here. He's going to be pretty close behind Alessio Di Capua once again as they will climb up the hill towards turn 1. He has DRS, something the Ferrari does not have the advantage of at this stage of the race, but he's not got enough overspeed. He's not using overtake, and he's not trying to pass Alessio quite yet. Maybe just waiting until next lap when he'll be even closer.
Yeah, right, that's the trick now, and yeah, as you said, close down the gap. But something we know now, we go for just 56 laps. So that's basically, I think, just 1 hour and 10 minutes, about. So a bit less than we expected, but well, it's still a 100% race, so it's still way more than just 50%, going for half of the distance. Way more than the guys are used to.
Indeed, yeah, no, I'm quite surprised actually that it's only 56 laps, but nevertheless, I'm sure some of the drivers won't be complaining that it's a bit fewer laps. Well, come the end of this one, they might be feeling it a little bit there, a little bit in terms of the endurance and a little bit in terms of the mental endurance as well, especially with having to avoid the corner cuts. Lucas UK has picked up a time penalty at this stage of the race. Both Zones and Matthias Collegon have retired from this race, so neither of them will be making it to the end. That is Zones' car out there causing yellow flags in the opening sector. He did come into the pits to retire, but the car decided that is not what it wanted to do. Julian is into the pits as well in the Williams. I wonder if he's got front wing damage. I wonder if he's going to keep going as well, or if we're going to see the Williams driver retiring. I think he is going to keep on going with it. But he's on medium tyres, so this is not going to be the way he wanted his strategy to go, as he has to dive onto softs with a change of that front wing. Further up the order, though, it is the top 9 who are still well within DRS range of one another, and then Joni Tormala falling away, of course, on those medium tyres. The pace will come to him on those tyres once the softs start to fall away from these drivers, but right now they're doing a good job of not battling with one another. They're just holding within that DRS train, just trying to help each other to get away from the contra-strategists behind.
Yeah, exactly, and that's quite an interesting thing. I haven't even shown on stream what we've got, what tires we've got on, and yeah, well, we can see that there are 5 guys just with the medium tire. I mean, Arsen, but I think Arsen started further up. Yes. So, or did he? Wait. Let us. No, he didn't. So he chose the soft tires at the back. Because, well, then you're quicker than the rest at the start. But we can see that he cannot really use it to his advantage. I mean, he would need to overtake Alessio Di Capua. to well, make his strategy work in the end. But yeah, that's not really working at the end. But the rest of the grid is pulling now about 3 seconds. At least Andy has 3 seconds. I mean, the rest of them have, of course, more, but to those guys. So I think should be about the advantage you get from the reverse strategy, because we know it's quite a bit stronger. I think that's just because you got the soft tire in the complete fresh state and not from the qualifying, especially for the top 10. I mean, the rest of course gets fresh tires, but yeah, and therefore you maybe have a bit more quicker laps, and then especially in the end when you know you have to push when you're in your final position, basically where you will finish. And there we go, an overtake from Sven Zerner. No, it was an overtake try. It's not yet finished, and they're still side by side through those S's. Oh, no. And there's a big spin.
Yeah, Sven Zerner, I mentioned he was getting frustrated, stuck behind Lucas for a fair few laps at the beginning, pretty much since the start of the race. When he tried to take that position on lap 1, taking it through the S section side by side is always going to be a tricky and dangerous thing to try and pull off. And in the end, it has come to bite Lucas UK, who is trying to defend that position. I didn't see the incident clearly enough to be able to apportion blame one way or the other. But Lucas will not be happy. Still ahead of his teammate in the other Red Bull there, Arsene Kardinov, also on soft tires, though Lucas still trying to battle with Alessio Di Capua, and now might find himself picked off by the Russian behind in the other Red Bull. As a lovely little switch back here through the triple right-hander. They're going side by side. Any Red Bull fans will be watching this from behind the sofa right now, but it is Arsene Kardinov who makes the move and moves up into 11th, able to capitalize as well as the rest of the drivers on Lucas's mistake. And it is a disaster for Lucas, in all honesty. I was going to talk about how much of a disaster the start of this race had been for Arsene Kardinov. Starting on those soft tires, but not being able to progress past Alessio Di Capua is really hampering him in this race, because he needs to be going as fast as he possibly can right now when you're on the freshest, softest tires. And it's just simply not the case, with Alessio Di Capua being a roadblock for him. And with the difficulty of overtaking I mentioned in qualifying, he just cannot seem to get past the Ferrari driver. And he will not be too happy in that Red Bull cockpit right now. But if there's going to be anyone who's more unhappy, it is his teammate who's now behind him.
Yeah, that's really everything summed up for those two drivers at the moment. So not a really good start for Red Bull at the moment. Even out of the points right now. Well, there will be still things to change, but it's beautiful that all the guys who have penalties now found together.
Indeed, yeah, that's very nice. If only Julian had a penalty as well at the bottom of the order, it would look very, very aesthetically pleasing. Not that I'd wish a penalty on Julian, of course. He's already 20.7 seconds behind the rest of the field, so to be honest, that would probably just be a little bit cruel from my side. Speaking of cruel, at the very front of the grid, Danny Berezhny is proving that he was playing with his food a little bit. He had a lot left in the overtake in the ERS tank a couple of laps ago. Now he's down at 13%, but look, the gap between himself and Daniele Haddad has skyrocketed. It is well outside of DRS now. Daniele Haddad had been using a lot of his ERS to keep up with the race leader, and now that Danny Berezhny has put down his charge in through those rear tires, that electrical charge, the extra 160 horsepower around some parts of the circuit, he is now comfortably ahead at the front of the race. Daniele Haddad down in second and struggling to keep with him at this stage, and losing DRS is not good news for him whatsoever. Further behind, that's Patrick Cruich making up a position as Floris Wires ran wide through the left-hander. He's got hot tires. He's struggling to hold on through the triple right-hander there, as he's picked up a 3-second time penalty as well. Again, another mistake through the penultimate corner. He is really struggling in the Haas right now. Maybe those tires starting to fall away from him just a little bit. And speaking of people struggling, Lucas is off again, and he's lost a significant portion of his front wing this time.
Yeah, it's gonna be another pit stop, but well, maybe. Well, the thing is, we're not used to tires holding on much longer, because we're not used to 50% races, but we're doing 100% now. So I think normally if you see a soft tire over 10 laps, you think like, oh, it's pretty used, but I think now it's just starting to fall off. At least that's why I assume. I don't know exactly, of course. I've not tried a 100% race and used a short.
indeed. I don't think too many people have, to be honest. But a lot of the drivers have probably at least given it a go in preparation for the race here today. And we might well see a difference between those that did prepare and those that didn't. It looks like Danny Berezhny has done his homework for sure. Almost up to 2 seconds at the very front of the order right now. Considering he spent about 10 laps narrowly ahead of Daniele Haddad, about half a second most of the time, to suddenly skyrocket that gap by 1.5 seconds up to 2 seconds. It's just really, really impressive from the Hungarian, in all honesty, showing why he has been a contender at the very front of F1 esports for the last couple of seasons, challenging for race wins at the very least, if not the championship in some seasons. And yeah, right now he's stamping his authority on this race, that is for sure, and maybe looking to mount a charge in the early stages of the ORL F1 Split A Season 14 season. He might well be looking to already get one hand on the trophy as early as he possibly can, but there's a lot of racing still to go after this one, of course, so I shouldn't get too ahead of myself.
Yeah, but an interesting thing still to look for is that Carton has 80% ERS, so he's like way further up than most of the drivers are usually with their ERS usage. And well, on the straight he was kind of close in the following section, but now he fall back again. About that happens every lap now. I think since 3 laps or something, he gets very close and then just falls back to 0.6 second. Yeah, 0.6 seconds or something. And don't know why he's just not using this ERS sometimes in the middle part of the circuit. I mean, he has well more than enough just to make this little difference, just to do maybe an overtake, maybe prepare for the start and finish straight, to be there closer and then go for it. For example, just through the fast right-hander.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the triple right-hander especially, you know, you're going pretty much flat through there anyway, so you may as well be dumping that overtake. It's going to help you a lot through there, help you to stick closer to the rear wing of your competitor up ahead. Ben Sabukonyi is another driver who's holding on to the ERS percentages very, very well indeed. Currently up at about 90% through the majority of the lap. Daniele Haddad starting to struggle right now. I think it's getting to him, seeing Danny Berezhny just completely gap him out at the front. He's starting to make a few mistakes in that racing point there. We saw it into the tricky left-hander on this lap. He's run wide through the penultimate corner as well, and he might well be a sitting duck for Alvaro Carreton if he gets this final corner wrong. He doesn't, he nails it, but so does Carreton. And Carreton has the advantage, of course, of that DRS. He's slamming the overtake down as well. Will he be close enough to think about a dive bomb into turn 1? Yes, he will. I don't think he thought that move was on the cards until he saw how early Daniele Haddad braked, and now he's pushed him out wide through turn 1. But it is Alvaro Carreton that makes the position in the end ahead of Daniele Haddad. 3 seconds up to the race leader, and Carreton needs to put his foot down now, or else this race win will be well and truly slipping away from him, even though we're only at lap 14 of 56, so plenty of racing left to go here in the USA. And Alvaro Carreton, of course, being the top driver in the time trial standings, will be feeling like he has a good chance to close back in on Danny Berezhny.
Well, look in who joined the fight. Ben Sabukonyi was already close before to Alvaro Carreton, and problems just don't stop for Haddad. He's basically in his gearbox at the moment, and Sven Zerner also joined the fight, now pretty close to Sabukonyi.
A bit of a gap down to Patrick Crouch, who's in 6th right now, only 1.2 seconds to the cars ahead, so that is really, you know, to call that a bit of a gap is a little bit mean, but of course he is outside of DRS range, and that is what matters most. Floris Wires just picked up a 3-second time penalty in 7th, and Andy also hanging on with Wires and with Crouch at this stage of the race, so Andy really doing a great job in the Ferrari. I gotta say, I've been very impressed with him both in qualifying and in the race, considering he was a split B driver last season. To be, you know, well ahead of the likes of Joni Torma, admittedly with a different strategy, but to be keeping up with 2 ex-F1 esports drivers in the form of Patrick Crouch and Floris Wires is very, very impressive indeed. So Andy is doing a really great job right now, and I hope to see more of it as the race goes on. Ben Sabukonyi, meanwhile, is very, very close behind Daniele Haddad at this stage. It was 0.2 of a second for a brief moment there. Of course, Haddad still will have DRS on Alvaro Carreton ahead, and speaking of Carreton, he has not been able to close down the gap to Berezhny any further. In fact, it has actually Sorry, I'll try that one again. It has actually expanded a little bit there between the two of them, up about 0.4 of a second since Karaton got past Haddad. So Berezne proving that no matter who it is in second place, none of them can quite hold a candle to him.
No, not really. We're just bombing away from everyone, and there goes Sabakani for a look just, but that was just the announcement of his overtake, maybe. That he's there and that he wants to get past Haddad, and Haddad is not really under pressure. I mean, he made overtakes, mistakes before, but yeah, now he's really even more under pressure because he's just basically then losing one place after the other, and he just sees two cars in his rear mirror who are really close and just search for a way past.
Chris picking up a 3-second time penalty there towards the back of the order. That's not his first of the race. And Arsene still stuck behind Alessio Di Capua right now, and Alessio's actually caught up really well with Joni Tormela. So Tormela was about 2 seconds or thereabouts ahead of Alessio Di Capua about lap 3, lap 4. But since then, Alessio has just slowly closed back in on his fellow medium tyre runner. Joni Tormela still falling away from the soft tyre drivers, as well as a few of them are now heading into the pits. That is Sven Zerner, who is the first to blink of the front few runners. Lap 16 onto lap 17 we go. And Sven Zerner is the first one into the pits. It's going to be another set of soft tyres for the AlphaTauri, so committing to the 2-stop around here. I'm sure we're going to see plenty of drivers going for that 2-stop strategy in this 100% race. And Sven will be filtering out towards the very back of the order, but he's got a bit of clean air up ahead of him with which he can pull off the undercut if necessary. Meanwhile, further up, it's Joni Tormela and Alessio Di Capua who are battling through the S section. Joni Tormela holding on for now, but the Italian in the Ferrari will be chomping at the bit. He's been faster than Tormela for the last few laps, as I mentioned, and he'll want to get past as quickly as he possibly can. Also, a bit of a side note here, the skies are looking awfully dark right now.
Yeah, that's correct. It's quite been dark, and we see through that corner there's been a lot of rubber been put there, a lot of lockups, basically completely painted black. So that's a tricky combination there. But yeah, maybe there's a chance of rain, and maybe that's the reason why they're going for 2 softs. I don't know. But yeah, it looks most likely like a 2-step strategy for everyone, because pitting now, I think a medium wouldn't be enough to go to the end, even though as Karaton does and Flores Warriors. I don't think we've just got an overtake. I think I've heard something. Some car hit another. That's probably Capua's and Tormela's. But I think there's no damage. No, it was just slightly touching. But Capua made it past with a bit of contact, but wasn't that bad in the end.
Indeed, yeah, and he'll want to get past Joni Tormela because, of course, he's in a direct race with him, both starting on those medium tyres. Interesting to note, Sven Zerner did manage to pull off the undercut on both Alvaro Caraton, or rather on Alvaro Caraton. He was already ahead of Flores Wires before heading into the pits. And Sven Zerner really close behind Tom 97 now, who pretty much just waves him past in that left-hander there. Does not want to be battling with a car on fresh soft tyres when Tom himself is on 17-lap-old medium, struggling a little bit for grip on those yellow-walled tyres as well. It is interesting to see just how much of an undercut Sven Zerner was able to pull off on Alvaro Caraton, who was second before heading into the pits. So Sven doing a great job, of course, going for the soft tyres when both Caraton and Wires went for the mediums. Definitely going in a different direction. And meanwhile, none of the rest of the soft tyre starters have come into the pits on this lap either. So they might be going a completely different way to the rest of them in terms of strategy here. Maybe not looking to 2-stop the likes of Berezne, Haddad, Jabokonyi, Kruich, and Andy, as they are all currently staying out. And you'd have thought if they were worried about being on the same strategy as the drivers who have already pit, then they would have want to have, get rid of the undercut potential as best they can. But right now, they're just staying out there.
Yeah, so it really much looks forward to a 1-stop strategy, either on the hards or on the mediums. But I think if they're trying to stretch those softs even longer, I mean, we've now got lap number 20, so I think the medium should soon be able to carry it until the end. If you can carry the soft for 20 laps, then medium will sure go for a bit more. Yeah, that's gonna be the question in the end, but yeah, there's not much information about how long tires do last on the USA short, because, well, it's basically not really been actively driven.
Yeah, and maybe a bit of an indication here, though, as Arsen Kardanov just made his way past Joni Tormala, despite the fact that Arsen is on 19-lap-old softs compared to the 19-lap-old mediums for Tormala. So evidently, those softs are hanging on well enough for Arsen to be able to make the move on the AlphaTauri driver. And speaking of AlphaTauri, Sven Zerner just set the fastest lap of the race last time around. He is on an absolute tear through the field right now, comfortably getting past Tom 97, Chris, and Vipic. Chris has had a bit of an off since then and has fallen further down the order behind Tom 97 and behind Alvaro Caraton as well. But Sven Zerner definitely the fastest car out there at the moment, as you would expect on those fresh soft tyres, but he is really at a roaring pace right now, closing up on his teammate. Ben Sabokonyi is the next of the leaders to head into the pits in the Renault. We'll see what colour tyres he's going to be putting on. Looks like it's going to be yellow-walled mediums for the appropriately liveried car. And he'll be heading back out to join the same strategy as Caraton and Wires.
That kind of looked like he got a penalty, but that was Alessio Di Capua, who just got a penalty for, I think, I don't know, it's for sure for corner cutting. That's what the usual is. Yeah, 3 seconds should be corner cutting. We've got also some penalty collectors. Matches Whippage with 11 seconds and Chris with 12 seconds. And I think a bit new to the rules of and there goes Sven Zerner for an opportunistic overtake on his own teammate, Termala. But in the end it kind of worked. I hope Termala got no damage from that. It looks clean, but maybe it's a light green. I hope it isn't, but it could be, because Sven kind of hit him there a bit on the front wing.
Sven Zerner already, after getting past as well, he's already 1.1 seconds ahead. Now he doesn't have to worry about passing Arsen Kardanov, who heads into the pits, joining Patrick Crouch in the pit lane. Crouch going for those medium tyres, and Arsen Kardanov probably going to be going for the same. And now Sven Zerner just has to close down Alessio Di Capua, and then he's going to be getting pretty close to Andy, Daniele Haddad, Danny Berejne, the cars he was in a train with at the beginning of the race. He's honestly catching them at a rate of knots right now. It's going to be a minute before he gets there. The gap's still pretty major, but nevertheless, he is doing a very good job on these softs right now.
Yeah, but the interesting thing about this season is that there's been a rule added that if you get 4 penalties for corner cutting, you will be disqualified for the race. That was at least what I've seen from the, or that's been announced in this from B announcement thingy on Discord. So that's what I've read. I think we had this once, or it was there, for the for every split, but with 5 penalties, and we see a beautiful overtake from Sabokonyi on to Chris down the inside the corner there. So yeah, I think this rule is in place, that if you got 4 3-second time penalties for corner cutting, then you will get disqualified. That will be especially hard on this track.
Indeed, yeah. No, Chris might have already covered that regard as well, because he's got 15 seconds worth of time penalties right now. So if you're right, he has in fact been disqualified. The race leader just came into the pits, Danny Berejne. He's come out in 4th, just ahead of Alvaro Caraton. He's also on medium tyres, so that is exactly where Danny Berejne would have wanted to be. He'll be unhappy that Sven Zerner is considerably up the road, but of course, Zerner on those soft tyres, that is a bit of a mitigating factor there. He's really rolling the dice, Sven Zerner, going a different way to the rest of the field. Of course, if he just went the same direction as the rest of the cars he was battling with at the start of the race, he probably wouldn't have had a chance to win. But right now, by doing something different, he might just give himself an opportunity. Here comes Danny Berejne getting past Joni Tormala, who is struggling there on an older, far older set of medium tyres, and that is our erstwhile race leader back up into 3rd. Alvaro Caraton in 5th, Matthias Vipic in 6th, yet to pit. Same for Tom 97 in 7th. There's Joni Tormala into the pit. Patrick Crouch, Daniele Haddad, both behind Ben Sabokonyi. So Daniele Haddad really losing out at this stage of the race. Andy also has now fallen well away from the rest of those drivers. That is Chris, who has retired in the pit, so I wonder if he's retired because he has been disqualified from the race. We'll have to await confirmation of that or not, but either way, he will not be finishing this race. Ben Sabokonyi just getting past Tom97 for 7th. A lot of drivers on fresher tyres just passing drivers who are on older tyres as if it's nothing right now, but Bent's next up the line for him is Floris Wires, who managed a 3-lap undercut on him, got past the Hungarian, but Bent will be wanting to get back past the Haas driver as quickly as he possibly can.
Yes, of course. I've just wanted to add that I'm not 100% sure about this, so hopefully he didn't quit, did not quit because I just said that. But that's at least what I read in some Discord message. But yeah, and to maybe jump on a question that's been asked a lot in the chat, where is Jarno Opmer? As far as I'm informed, Jarno isn't racing this season. He wasn't. He was at least not on the driver lineup, and yeah, therefore I think he's not racing actively. And there goes Floris Weirs into turn number 1 past Matthias Whippich, and can Sabokonyi take advantage of that? It looks like it. Yes, he's got past. Therefore, a bad lap for Whippich. 2 overtakes just in sector 1.
Indeed, yeah, but of course he is on those 24-lap old medium tyres, so hardly can be blamed for that one, as his teammate behind goes for a bit of a dive bomb on Tom97, who gets forced off track there, just about holds on to the racing point. Daniele Haddad also drives past his teammate while he's off-road, says thank you very much, I'll take that. But Tom97 in a direct battle with Matthias Whippich right now. We'll want to see Kruijs and Daniele Haddad getting past Whippich before the Polish driver heads into the pit. We'll have to wait and see whether that will be the case or not. Tom probably won't be too happy about his treatment at the hands of Whippich's teammate there, though, as it was a pretty major dive bomb there from Kruijs. But he did manage to get past, and I don't think there was too much contact between the two drivers, so I don't think there was any carbon fiber that got sheared off of either front wing. Whippich is now probably going to be an easy pass here for Kruijs, although he's starting to bottom out on speed at the end of the straight, but it looks like he has been able to get past there and up into 7th. Ben Sabokonyi is now ahead of Floris Wires as well. Whippich might lose out to Daniele Haddad, who will want to get past as quick as possible so he doesn't lose any time to Patrick Kruijs. But in the S section, it is so difficult to get past another driver, so he's just going to have to wait maybe until the left-hander coming up, the heavy braking zone.
Exactly, maybe you can just gain a bit here, but I think except for dive bombing, there's nothing much to do without the long straight and ERS before on the normal circuit on the GP layout. But yeah, there we go. Maybe gets another chance onto the start and finish straight, and yeah, with DRS and maybe ERS. I mean, Whippich got a lot, I have to say, 50%, but Daniel Haddad has actually a bit more. So they should be pretty equal. I don't know if they're just going both for full ERS on the straight to just try to do that overtake or try to avoid that overtake. And ooh, there goes Haddad down the inside into the turn, and that was a beautiful overtake. Instantly in front. I think he did brake a bit later, so yeah, wonderful overtake there. That's the stuff we want to see here.
Indeed, and lovely move from the Italian in the racing point, but he needed to make the move there and then. I'm sure he knew that fact. He could see Patrick Kruijs just getting away bit by bit up ahead of him. The gap is now 1.1 seconds between them. Daniel Haddad couldn't really afford to let that grow much more because he needs to get back within DRS range of the Polish driver as quick as he possibly can if he wants to retain any hopes of a podium come the end of this race. There's a fair few drivers up ahead that he needs to worry about, not least of which Sven Zerner, who's still leading the way. 9-lap-old soft tyres now. His pace has dampened a little bit compared to what he was doing after he first came into the pits, but nevertheless still with a 5.5 second gap to Alessio Di Capua, and that's about to be Danny Berezhny instead, because here comes the Hungarian up the inside into turn 1. The Ferrari driver has nothing he can offer in defense. 27 lap old medium tires now, and Berezhny is back up into second, and he'll be looking to hunt down Zerner. This is going to be very telling now to see whether Berezhny will be able to close the gap on Zerner, or whether it's still going to be the AlphaTauri driver with the pace at this stage of the race.
Yeah, this will really turn out interesting in the end, because Sven Zerner will fall back again, and because he needs another pit stop. He can't finish on the soft tires. First of all, because he needs to use another tire, and second of all, because this tire will explode if you try to go to the end of this race. So yeah, preferably the medium will be the choice at the end, and then he needs to fight back again. But of course, it depends also on what Danny Berezna is now aiming for with his mediums. If he tries to bring it to the end, that will be 24 laps, I think, in the end, or 25, about that. He needs to go on them. So we've got Di Capua on 28 lap old mediums, so that should be possible. But well, no, I think it's over. If it's even over 30, it's 33 or something. He needs to go on the medium tires to do the one stop now. But yeah, let's see when the medium runners are coming in to see if they're going for a one stop and they can push their tires to about lap 33 to 36, or if they if this is not possible. But I think it is, because they're still out on 28 lap old mediums. They wouldn't if it wasn't possible.
Right now, we have soft tyre runners topping and tailing the field. Sven Zerner at the front, Joni Tormala at the back, both of the AlphaTauris, and Tormala picking up a 3-second time penalty there. Stuck behind Julian, who he tried to overtake into turn 1. He's surely going to get in here. No, still can't get past the Williams driver, who is battling like his life depends on it right there. Can hardly blame him. He hasn't had much company or entertainment this race, and now he finally has a car to battle with. But I'm sure Tormala won't be quite so entertained as Julian, as there was always going to be one victor in that battle with a 18-lap gulf in the age of their soft tyres. Tormala does make his way past and up into 13th. But this race has absolutely not gone the way of the Finn whatsoever. He'll be very unhappy with how things are going at this stage. Someone who will be happy, though, is Sven Zerner, because ever since Danny Berezne got past Alessio Di Capua and up in a second, the gap has only extended by about 2/10 through now 3/10, now 4/10 between Zerner and Berezne. So even at this stage, with 6-lap fresher medium tyres, Sven Zerner is still the one on those older softs who can still put down the race-leading pace right here. Danny Berezne is matching him almost, but not quite right now, and that is good news for the German in the AlphaTauri at the very front. Further behind, Alvaro Caraton is closing up behind Alessio Di Capua. He'll want to get past the Ferrari driver very soon, as he is still wanting to, of course, nail on his podium at the end of this race. Has a penalty to his name, which Ben Sabukonyi, his nearest competitor, does not. But right now, he is 3.8 seconds ahead of the Hungarian, and now he's about to get past Alessio Di Capua as well. Easy wave by on the main straight there. Di Capua will try and go for the switch back on the exit of turn 1, but there's no hope on 30-lap old mediums. And as a result, Caraton is up into 3rd, where he'll be hoping to finish this race at the very least. Further down the order, Andreas just got past Vipic for 9th.
Exactly, and that's it so far. But we have to say, even after 30 laps now, we've passed the halfway mark, so we're halfway through the race, and it's now, well, it's now about exactly an hour ago, I think, the lobby started. So those guys are actually racing since like 40 minutes, but there's still 25 laps to come. So yeah, it's basically still a lot of tension, and it's basically not really going into the end now. But I think a lot of drivers are already that's the normal distance they're used to race. But now it's just going further, and now it's the it really counts if you're consistent enough to pull through the whole race and to not make any mistakes, even though you're racing for like an hour.
Indeed, yeah. And I'm actually quite impressed by how, I was about to say, how few penalties, as Joni Tormala gets himself yet another penalty at the back of the order. He's on up to 9 seconds right now. But there's still a fair few drivers who don't have any penalties, and considering the amount of troubles we were seeing in qualifying with those invalidations, I'm impressed with the likes of Zerner, Berezne, Ben Saboconi, Kruch, Daniele Haddad, who have all managed a very solid pace in this race, all the while avoiding any 3-second time penalties whatsoever. And then you've also got Caraton, Di Capua, Andy as well, who are only on 3 seconds each, so they're still doing a good job as well. Floris Wires, though, on 18 seconds worth of penalties right now. If you're right about that disqualification rule, there is another candidate, unfortunately for the Dutchman in the house, but he's going to be pressing on with it for now. at least he'll want to finish in a decent position on the road, that he might well find whatever points he gets from this race stripped away from him after the checkered flag by the stewards, if they aren't going to be stripped away by the fact that he's just going to fall down the order due to the penalties anyway. And
yeah,
Cruj,
exactly.
Daniele Haddad both definitely standing to gain positions off of him right now, as they are both within DRS range of him. And Donator as well does have penalties of his own, but it's only 3 seconds. 5.5 seconds down the road from Daniele Haddad.
And Arson's now getting really close to Whippage, and of course trying to do another overtake there. I mean, we've seen now Whippage doing not what Berezne is probably aiming for. Now in 32 laps, I think there'll be 1 lap more will be possible. That's, I think, all that Berezne needs for his win. So. What?
Sorry, that's Patrick Cruj up the inside of Flores Wires there. They made significant side pod to side pod contact, and the Haas has been pushed wide, and now has Daniele Haddad for company as well through the triple right-hander. This will turn into the inside for the penultimate corner, but lovely defense around the outside from Flores there. Good stuff from the Dutchman to hold on to 7th for now, but his tail is wagging all over the place. He is struggling with only 15 lap or medium tires. He's managed to let the rears overheat. And here comes Daniele Haddad up his inside into turn 1 as well. Not much of a defense this time around from Wires. And he's down into 8th. He's also up to 21 seconds of penalties now. So this race is going from bad to worse from him at this stage. Tom 97 towards the back of the order has now headed into the pits finally. He's onto a set of softs, which he'll be looking to make to the end of the race. A 22-lap stint on those softs.
Yeah, and Arsenal also made it past Whippage now, immediately after we saw the overtake for Crucci and Haddad. And yeah, Whippage of course tries to stick to him still, but he seems to be falling back a lot, so I don't think he'll be able to re-overtake. And yeah, that's for some. We have to say that up front, there's been building a lot of gaps, and quite big gaps. I mean, Sven could, well, extend his gap a little bit more. Now it's falling again, so still about 6 seconds, 6.1. Then Alvaro Carreton has now about 4 seconds of a gap, and Di Capua also 2.5 seconds. So this front field has been quite falling apart.
Yeah, Danny Berezne has actually closed in significantly on Sven Zerner over the course of this lap, though. So maybe those soft tyres are starting to fall away just a little bit for our current race leader. Alessio Di Capua is now up to 6 seconds of time penalties, but outside of that, he's actually doing a really good job on those very, very old medium tyres as well. He'll be looking to come on to softs for the end of the race in a couple of laps' time, you'd have to expect, if not at the end of this lap. And when he does so, he is going to be one of the fastest cars out on track, if not the fastest. Tom 97 probably currently the fastest on his fresh set of soft tyres. But Alessio was so far ahead of everyone else who started the race on the medium tyres. He might well have just kept himself in contention for a decent point-scoring finish coming the end of this race, considering how much faster the soft tyres have been when fresh compared to those mediums, and the fact that his tyres are going to be fresher all the way to the end of the race than everyone who is currently on medium tyres and hoping to go to the end on those. So Alessio Di Capua might be in a very, very solid position here.
Yeah, he might be, but all of those penalties, as long as he can keep it in front, but Fodon or Sabokanya is pretty close. So yeah, let's see how this turns out, and then we'll see the finish in the end. But I think Zerner is now about to come in, because basically I think he drove the other tire set also 18 laps, because that would make sense now at lap 36. So he should be coming now into the pits, because I think the mediums wouldn't be really of use if he didn't go in them now. Well, he goes for the 19 laps now, but yeah, we'll see. I think he should change soon, because the soft tire grip should be now really less than the one of the mediums. But I think he just waits for the moment that Danny is really quicker than him, and then goes in the pits.
Yeah, I'd imagine that's what he's doing because he wants to make sure he has the maximum advantage at the end of this race as well. He knows he's going to be having to battle up through the field against guys who are going to be on medium tires that are between sort of 13 to 18 laps older than his. And he wants to make sure that gap in the gulf in age between his tires and those of the cars he's battling with is as big as he possibly can for when he needs to make that charge up through the field. Right now, Ben Saboconi very, very close behind Alessio Di Capua, who is still out there on his mediums, not going in for the soft tires quite yet. So quite large pit windows we've been seeing, even for those drivers on the same strategy, which is a nice thing about 100% races, I think, is that you do get to see people pitting 5 laps apart, even though they're on the same strategy, which I think makes it a lot more interesting, a lot more dynamic in terms of the strategy options available to those drivers. And it also makes a 2-stop just much more possible because you get so many more laps of freshness out of new tires that you can actually look to narrow gaps, build gaps over the course of a stint, much more so than you can do usually. But here comes Ben Saboconi now on Alessio Di Capua. He's taken the inside for turn 1, despite the fact that the Italian tried to show him the outside, and he makes the move stick into turn 1, of course. Not much that Di Capua could do on those aged medium tires. Next up the road is Kruch and Daniele Haddad. Haddad getting very, very close to the back of the Polish driver now, having got back within DRS range a fair few laps ago. And they will both be hoping that Alessio heads into the pit sooner rather than later because they do not want to lose time battling and trying to get past him or even stuck behind him for a lap or two when they can see Ben Saboconi just up the road.
Yeah, exactly. And, well, about that 100% race, I mean, it's also just you have the time to do your overtakes calmly. You don't need to really chase through the field to get in time until the checkered flag shows. You really have your time to take, yeah, okay, I can overtake just one person one lap, or even maybe take 2 laps for one other driver, for one opponent. And that's just the thing you don't have in 50% races. If you go for a 2-stop, then there's basically just about 10 laps left for you to even do the overtake. And now, I mean, Zerner would have nearly 20 to do so. And of course, the tires wouldn't be even half done.
Alessio Di Capua is still out there on his medium tires right now. I think he's missing a trick by not coming into the pits, in all honesty. We can see Sven Zerner is still on really solid pace on 21-lap-old soft tires. So if Di Capua was to head into the pits right now, his softs would comfortably still last to the end of the race. He'd still have decent pace at the end of the race as well. So I think he should be heading into the pits as soon as he possibly can, especially because he's losing time, having to defend from the cars in and around him as well. He lost time battling with Ben Saboconi. He's got Kruch and Daniele Haddad chomping at the bit to get past him. Floris Wires in that conversation as well. And finally, he does indeed head into the pits to get rid of that set of tires he started the race on, the final driver to do so. He will come out towards the back of the order, but he's going to be on very fresh, very fast soft tires. And he should be able to charge up through the field and look to try and get into about 5th or 6th at least come the end of this race. That is what he'll be hoping for. Let's see how much is possible for the Ferrari driver, as he's just about going to come out behind Joni Tormela. So that's a bit of a bummer for him, actually, because Tormela's on decent tires right now. So it's not going to be that easy necessarily to get past the AlphaTauri, although with the ultimate freshness of his soft tires, Di Capua should still be able to make the move.
Yeah, and then it's just interesting on where he'll land in the end, because it's just determined by how many overtakes he can do in the last 16 laps. And meanwhile, oh, there we go. I was just about to say Zerner didn't pit yet, even though he was on 5.3 seconds now to Danny Bresnay. But now he went into the pits with 23-year-old softs. I would have went for the softs a bit earlier, for the mediums. In the end then, because, well, then you have a lot more time to do the overtakes. Well, then here you can see him dropping down the order. In the meanwhile, we've got now Milky in the chat, the normal commentator. I think from next week on, or from next race on, you'll be gonna hear him in the commentator spots.
Indeed. Hello to Milky. I'm sure he's been participating in another race elsewhere, I believe. So I hope that went well for you, Milky, and hope to see you back in the commentary box here soon as well. But Forest Wires making a bit of a mistake there, actually, in the left-hander, and that's going to be Sven Zerner getting past. Nice move there from Sven, and that is exactly the sort of thing he needs to happen. He came out just behind this train of cars, and he risked maybe getting stuck in a DRS train there, but Flores Wires very obligingly made the mistake and just opened the door wide to allow the German in the AlphaTauri through, and now Sven Zerner is looking at the rear wing of Daniele Haddad. It's up in the distance for now, but it's 1 second between them, and that is only going to get smaller and smaller with the 17-lap delta in the age of their tires. Sven Zerner, it should be a bit of a walk in the park for him right now to get past Daniele Haddad and then Patrick Kreutsch as well, as long as he can get close enough to the rear wing of the Racing Point. Daniele Haddad will still have DRS on the car ahead, but that shouldn't be enough to save him given the age of his tires in comparison to Sven Zerner. Out at the front, it is now Danny Beresne leading once again from Alvaro Carreton, who's 5 seconds behind and with a time penalty as well. A further 4 seconds down to Bent Sabokonyi, who's comfortably in third for the time being. He was close between himself and Patrick Kreutsch a couple of laps ago, but he's been able to build up that gap once again up to 2 seconds. So Bent's definitely showing himself to be the third quickest driver in the field for now, but Sven Zerner definitely will be having something to say about that as soon as he can get past Haddad and Kreutsch here as well. Alessio Di Capua still in 10th on those soft tyres, doing fast laps right now, and he'll be looking to close down Arsene Kardanov in the next few laps.
Yeah, but the problem still is for we've got Alvaro Carreton that he has a 6 seconds worth of penalties, which means that if Sven just gets close to Zabukonyi, he will be close. He will be in this window, and as they cross the line, Alvaro Carreton will slot behind him and even slot out of the podium range into 4th. So it's basically not much work for Sven Zerner left to do to get on the podium, especially when we're seeing how close he is to Haddad at the moment and how close Haddad is to Kreutsch. And what?
I was going to say, I think Zerner did all the work in that epic second stint of his on the second set of soft tyres. The way he dispatched everyone in the field, of course, he had the tyre advantage, but he dispatched everyone as clinically, as effectively, as efficiently as he possibly could. And then when he got out in front, he didn't get worried when Danny Beresne was the car behind him. He kept calmly building that gap just a little bit more and then holding it at around that 6 second mark for lap after lap after lap, until finally the tyres went away from him. And as soon as they did, he headed straight into the pits and onto these mediums. Right now, though, he's struggling a little bit to get past Haddad and Kreutsch. He should have got past last lap. He wasn't able to do so. This time around, he'll want to get past the Racing Point. He's thinking about a dive bomb into turn 1, but Haddad's late as well. And that was almost a plane crash there between Zerner and Haddad. Thankfully, Zerner had fast enough reactions, and now Haddad struggling through turns 3, now 4 as well in the S section. Zerner has to be careful, and he can't hold on to it through the S section. He might get the switch back here into this Mickey Mouse chicane, picks up a 3-second time penalty. This is all getting a bit rough and ready between these two right now, but Sven Zerner has made the move. Here comes Haddad back around the outside, but no chance. And Sven Zerner is finally up in a 5th, but that was not as clean nor as clinical as he would like to be. And as he was in the second stint of this race, he can't afford to have battles like that.
Yeah, and now that what I've explained before is completely off the table, because Sabokonyi has a 3.8 second gap onto Kreutsch, and that would mean he would be placed in front of both drivers actually. And oh no, wait, that's the gap from Sabokonyi onto Carreton now. Now I've got confused, but Sven Zerner would need. Oh no, now I'm messing things completely up. It's Carreton who has the penalty, and Sabokonyi is 3.8 seconds behind. So therefore, if Sven needs to get past Sabokonyi and get in this 3-second window now to get past Alvaro Carreton, or I think we would really like to see him passing him on track, but that would be another possibility of getting second place.
Indeed, yeah. Ben Sabokonyi definitely in a strong position right now with Sven Zerner picking up that 3-second time penalty in the battle with Haddad. And he's been good all throughout qualifying, all throughout the race. Ben Sabokonyi hasn't been the fastest, but he's been right up there at every stage in the race, and he's doing a really nice job. Patrick Cruich is looking to try and hang on, but can't quite live with the pace of the Renault up ahead. Sven Zerner behind as well might be giving Cruich something more to think about here into turn one. As they're heading into the final corner right now, all Sven Zerner needs to do is nail it on the throttle, and he does so with zero problem whatsoever. Doesn't have much left in terms of his charge in his ERS, but he doesn't need it with the DRS. He goes flying past on the straight there. Cruich, no chance of defending that one, no interest in defending it either. Letting Sven Zerner through and up into fourth. It is now 2.9 seconds between Zerner and Sabokonyi. With only 10 laps left to go in this race, though, Zerner is starting to run out of time, especially because he'll need to build a 3-second gap to the Hungarian if he wants to finish ahead of him come the end of this race.
Yeah, exactly, and that's my problem. And another thing I just noticed, Floris wires, and well, we've saw 15 seconds worth of penalties with him,
wow.
but now it's up to 30.
Yeah.
So he is basically already last. Because I mean, I don't want to count up every number, but I think that's not that's less than 30.
Yeah, that's a lot of penalties for Floris Wires. Thankfully, he's not battling with anyone, not getting in anyone's way at this stage, because it would all be a bit pointless considering the amount of penalties he has. Just chugging around in 7th at the moment. He's done a decent job in terms of pace, but the cleanliness of his racing, or at least in terms of corner cutting and track extensions, is definitely leaving something to be desired here today in the ORL Split A season opener at the US Grand Prix Short Circuit. Sven Zerner now has closed in by about a second over the course of the last lap on Ben Sabokonyi. If he continues to close at that rate of knots, he will have the opportunity to get past in only a couple of laps' time, and then he might be able to look to build that gap just about. He also needs to make sure that he's within 3 seconds of Caraton as well, because he wants to inherit yet another position, and of course a podium position from the Spaniard, who's currently circulating in second, but has 6 seconds worth of time penalties, and has the oldest of the medium tyres in the field alongside Wires as well. Alessio Di Capua just managed to make a move on Arsen Kardanov on this lap, and now we'll be looking to get past his teammate Andy as well, who's faded a little bit in the second stint of this race, but nevertheless can hold his head high after a good performance in that Ferrari. What is currently the lead Ferrari, but Alessio Di Capua will certainly be taking that honour away from him sooner rather than later. That's Patrick Cruich with a 3-second time penalty there. That's his first of the race, and that's a shame for him because he could have been looking to try and inherit from Alvaro Caraton as well.
Yeah, exactly, but now he's basically the same on the same step as Sven Zerner. And speaking of Sven Zerner, I mean, well, you said if he keeps closing in like that, and he just did. So yeah, maybe he already gets DRS next lap, and because he's just really close to the 1 second mark, and now DiCaprio gets past Andy. Yeah. This had to happen. I mean, on softs and 24 lap old mediums now, that's a big difference. So this was meant to happen. And Sven is now in the DRS window, even way before the DRS detection point, and therefore can close in a bit more. I don't think he's yet able to do the overtake, except if he's really pushing, but I think Sabokonyi will do anything against that. So I'll guess we will need to wait another lap for the overtake to happen. But he's closing up, but he's nearly completely out of ERS, just with 9% now in strength. That will not be enough to do the overtake on Sabokonyi, who's currently on 38.
Yeah, not enough juice left in the tank right now for Sven Zerner. He needs to recharge some of that ERS and then get past Ben Sabokonyi in a couple of laps time. He can't afford to get impatient and try and shoot his shot too early and just dump all the ERS out through those rear tires if he's not close enough. And if he uses all his ERS in an attempt to overtake Ben Sabokonyi and can't do it, then that's going to be another couple of laps he's going to have to wait behind. That's going to be yet more time that he's not able to build a gap back to the Hungarian once he does get past him. You've got to feel that he will get past him before the end of this race, but he can't afford to be impatient with it right now. He's got to strike the right balance between patience and not leaving it too long, leaving himself enough laps at the end of the race to build that gap back to Bent. But given the pace he had when he was closing up to the rear wing of that Renault, you've got to feel that he might be able to build that 3-second margin if he gets past on this lap. 7 laps left to go in this race, and he knows that he needs to get past. There is the impatience, but it's a lovely judge dive bomb there. Ben Sabukonyi didn't close the door, and as a result, that is Sven Zerner up in a third. Nicely done from the AlphaTauri driver. Didn't have to use too much ERS in the end because he just got it done in the braking zone.
Yeah, well, he had much DRS because I think as he disabled his DRS, he was on 3%. So, yeah, he was pretty much. It would stop anyway, but then it would stop completely, which means that he doesn't even get the minimal support of the electric motors, electric engines, and yeah, that would be even worse. So that would have not been useful for the overtake. But now he's done it, and I mean, he's already 1 second up, so he is faster than Photon. That's definitely a fact. But now he needs to close into Alvaro Carreton, and well, as we said, he needs to go. Yeah, now he's in the 3-second window, and that should be enough to overtake him, at least in the standings later on. So if he can keep it in this window, he will get second place. But of course, he wants to try to go for the overtake. He's just got 5 laps left though, so I don't think he'll be able to reach Berezne anymore.
No, I don't think he can look at a race win in this race, but nevertheless, he can look back on a race where he judged the strategy really, really well and made his pace count exactly when he needed to. He had that one moment with Daniele Haddad a few laps ago. That battle maybe didn't go his way or quite the way he would have wanted to, but everything apart from that has been super squeaky clean from the German in the AlphaTauri. He's done a great job in this race, you have to say. Even if he can't build that 3-second gap up to Ben Sabukonyi, it will be a well-earned podium for him, assuming he doesn't pick up another time penalty and ruin that all. But right now, it is 1.4 seconds between himself and Bent, as Alessio Di Capua there battling with Flores Wires, trying to go around the outside of the triple right-hander, but running out of road and picking up a 3-second time penalty in the process, and to add insult to injury, didn't even manage to make the overtake on a driver who has 33 seconds of time penalties. So that's not going to feel, 36, sorry, that's not going to feel too good for Alessio that he picked up that time penalty there. He absolutely did not need to do that. But he will get past Flores Wires here into turn 1, unless Flores sends it back up the inside, and he does. Big dive bomb there with the Daniel Ricciardo switch back in the braking zone, but not enough for Wires to hold on to the position. Nicely done by Alessio Di Capua in the end. Picking up that extra time penalty was a luxury he could not afford.
Yeah, exactly. Time penalties were really a problem in the end. Now that's maybe much more interesting than the tires at the moment. And yeah, I mean, he's 4 seconds behind Haddad, and he needs another 6 seconds to be clear of Haddad. So this next overtake will be quite impossible because he needs to pull now 10 seconds. From Haddad's current pace, and yeah, that would include to overtake Kruti and Sabukonyi, and I think maybe also Zerner. So yeah, that's quite hard.
Indeed, yeah, not the easiest thing in the world. Danny Berezne is actually losing a little bit of time right now to Alvaro Carreton. Over the last 3 laps or so, the gap has gone down by about a second, with the Williams driver reeling in the Alfa Romeo just a little bit at the very end of this race. I got a feel, though, I think Danny Berezne, judging by his percentage battery charge, I wonder if he's going to try and get fastest lap towards the end of this race. I think that might be what he's doing, just cooling off the tires a little bit, preserving them a little bit, and building up that charge in the battery, allowing Alvaro Carreton to get a little bit closer. He knows he's got penalties. He knows, Berezne knows that Carreton has penalties. He knows that he himself does not have penalties. And there is Flores Wires disqualified for too many time penalties. It seemed like it was an inevitability. Up to 39 seconds, I think it was, before the disqualification finally came. And the Dutchman will not be scoring any points here today. Not that he was going to anyway. His pace was okay, but he could not keep it between the white lines, and he has been punished for it.
Yeah, I mean, in the end, we would have done it. And I mean, he wouldn't even get any points because he was last anyway with those penalties. So, yeah, nothing much really changing. It's just that, but well, in the tables, he doesn't get this high fit. He doesn't get even 13th, but just 18th place. Or I think this place isn't even counted if you get disqualified. Is it possible?
Yeah, that would certainly make sense. Right now, Ben Sabukonyi is just teetering on the edge of that 3-second mark to Sven Zerner, and he's just fallen outside of it. So if Sven can continue the pace, and there's no reason to believe that he shouldn't be able to do that, then he should be able to claim the position away from Ben Sabukonyi come the end and claim what will become second position in this race once they all come across the line. Right now, only about 2 laps left to go once they come across the line this time around. Sven Zerner getting closer to the rear end of Alvaro Carreton as well. I wonder if he'll want to make the move on track. He knows surely the penalty situation for the Williams up ahead, and he knows that he does not want to lose that extra 0.3 of a second right now down to Ben Sabukonyi. If he battles with Alvaro Carreton and it doesn't go his way, he might risk allowing Benz back into that 3-second buffer zone. So Sven has to be careful and has to be calculating in the decision he makes right now when he comes up to the rear end of this Williams. Meanwhile, Danny Berezne, I mentioned that gap had come down to about 4 seconds. It's back up to 4.9 right now. And yeah, Danny Berezne was holding something back. He deployed a lot of his overtake on the last lap. I don't think he was able to take away the fastest lap though, but he gave it a good go.
Yeah, there's not a fast lap from him, but or maybe kind of take a look at who has the fastest lap, and it's Termala actually in 11th place, so just about snatching everyone in the points the fastest lap, so nobody gets it. Yeah, well, kind of fair in the end. Oh, well, if he can make that overtake in the last 2 laps now, or it's basically just 1 now, then he could get 2 points instead of none.
Indeed, yeah. There's a lot of penalties still to be worked out down the bottom there as well, and Tormala does have 12 seconds. So I don't think he's going to be gaining many positions. In fact, I don't think he's going to lose any either, but I don't think he's going to gain any apart from maybe getting past Tom 97 on track. So we might be able to claim P10 in the race and get that 1 point and then the extra point as well, as you mentioned, for the fastest lap. Daniele Haddad is all over the rear end of Patrick Crouch once again. These two have been nailed together for the whole second stint of this race, and Daniele Haddad has been frustrated behind the Mercedes. The pink Mercedes unable to get past.
Look at that, I think Termala heard me. He's now attempting the overtake around the outside of turn number 1, but they're still side by side, and they won't. No, they're not trying to go for it into the fast S's, but well, Tom kind of wants, but he's not fast enough. He's just not has not the pace. Termala has to go into the S's, and as Arson picks another 12-second time penalty, so I think even with penalties applied, Termala would stay in 10th position. Because Julian, and we're finished.
Yeah, across the line goes Danny Berezne to claim the win comfortably in the end. Sven Zerner manages to get second place. He came across the line behind Alvaro Carreton, but 6 seconds of penalties for the Spaniards bumps him down into third. Ben Sabukonyi picking up the final slot on the podium. Then it's Crouch, Daniele Haddad, and Alessio Di Capua who ran the contra strategy to decent effect, finishing ahead of his teammate Andy, who had a solid race for a driver that was in Split B last season. Arsen Kardanov manages a P9 finish, and Joni Tormala does take the 2 points for the fastest lap as well as for 10th, and he'll be happy with that. Tom 97 in 11th. Not the way he ended last season, that is for sure. He would have been hoping for better here today, but maybe this track just not suiting him. Alessio Di Capua given driver of the day. I'm going to disagree. I'm going to have to give that probably to... Ooh, it's a close one, actually. It's Daniele... no, not Daniele. It's Danny Berezne or it's Sven Zerner. It's got to be close between the two of them. Sven did a great job. Was the only driver to go for a proper 2-stop strategy and to really make it work. So he's got my vote.
Yeah, I would go for that too. I mean, of course, Danny Berezne did a great job. It was just a quick and insane drive there. But I think it's always also something more about drive of the day to have to do a lot of overtake, to maybe to do something that's not really usual, or maybe to just have kind of an incident and then fight back. So yeah, I would totally give that to Sven Zerner.
Yeah, Danny Berezne, he'll have to make do with just the win instead of the driver of the day. Boo-hoo, poor him. But I think he'll be happy with that. From pole to the win, it never looked that much in doubt. There was a bit of a question mark over just how well Sven Zerner would do on the 2-stop strategy. He did really well, but it wasn't enough to get close to challenging Danny Berezne in the end. 8.3 seconds once the penalties had been factored in was the gap between the two of them. But a great race from both of them. Ben Sabukonyi, one of only 2 drivers in the field not to pick up any time penalties, along with Danny Berezne. The Hungarians keeping it clean and managing to get and third as a result.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we're going to have some interviews with the top three. I hope. I hope they'll be ready to get in there and give us a statement. Yeah, and we've got already Danny and another one. Oh no, that was I think wrong. Did you pull us down here? Oh, there you are.
And then we got a couple more joining as well. So I think we can get underway with some questioning and see if anyone else joins while we are along the way. So thank you guys for joining us here for the interviews and for the first race of the season, of course. And we'll speak to Danny first, given that he was the race winner in the end. So Danny, first of all, how did you like the USA Grand Prix short circuit?
Yeah, hi guys. Yeah, I think this is the best short circuit out of all shorts, but I don't prefer the short circuit over the long one. It was probably one of the most exciting, exhausting race of my entire life. As corner cutting is extremely strict around here. You can attack all the curbs as they are totally flat, but once you leave the track with all your four wheels, you will get a warning. And on the whole race, we could only get 2 warnings, and the third one would be a penalty. So to push hard, especially at the beginning when I needed to break the DRS because I didn't want to give others advantage, so they easily follow me. So that time it was pretty hard to do that, but once I did that, the race was a little bit calmer. But still, I mean, maybe I'm weak or my force feedback is too strong, but I'm fully sweated.
I think that's fair enough. You did a great job to avoid those penalties as well, considering, as you mentioned, it was so tough. One of only 2 drivers to finish without those 3-second time penalties. Yeah, you mentioned that part in the opening stint of the race. There was a few laps where, was it Daniele Haddad who was behind you at that point in time? There was about sort of half a second between you. He was well within DRS range for a while. And then what was it, about lap 5, lap 6, maybe more like lap 10? You suddenly put the hammer down. Was that something you were planning on doing the whole way, or was it just, in the heat of the moment thing?
Yeah, so I wanted to break away at the first laps when they still can't use DRS, but I couldn't do that, so I slowed down intentionally, and I wanted to simulate if I was slower than him. So he went into a calmer rhythm, and he had one little slide when I thought his tire maybe overheated. I had nearly 100% energy, so I pushed as hard as I could and like switch rhythm really fast. It's not easy to do in the F1 game because you have to switch from calm driving to fully slant like quali laps from one lap to the other, and I hoped that he will realize this a little bit later. And we had a couple of laps when he was like 9/10 behind, a second behind, but once he was out of DRS, I think I had an advantage of 2 or 3 tenths per lap, and I could use that to my advantage. I built a 5 seconds gap at the pit stops, and I actually should have chosen the 2-stop strategy as well, because according to the monitor it was 4.5 seconds quicker, but at least I stayed out of traffic, and I thought that if only I'm in cleaner with my pure pace advantage, I could compromise this, knowing that I already had a 5 seconds gap at the end of the first stint. So that's why I chose the the 1-stop strategy, but the softs were crazy. Like with the old softs, I couldn't get closer to Sven on the newer mediums. They were that strong.
Indeed, yeah. And was there any point where you felt like you were worried about what Sven was doing, or did you think pretty much from the first 2 laps onward that you had the race in the bag?
Sorry, question again?
Yeah, sorry. Was there a moment where you thought you weren't going to win the race, where you thought maybe Sven was going to take it, or did you always know that you had it in the bag?
Yeah, I was a bit pessimistic when I saw his soft pace. I thought I will be maybe in his DRS, but he undercutted me by like 10 seconds. So he was 5 behind, and when I came out of the pit, he was 5 ahead, only in a couple of short laps. But to be honest, when he pitted, my soft tires were still only 20%, and I saw that I'm only slower than my fresh soft times by like 3-4 tenths. So I thought that the advantage for him per lap is not gonna be as big as a second, and he will even have traffic. So when he pitted 16 laps to go, he was like 15 seconds behind, and that moment I knew that if I don't make mistakes, then I will have it quite easily.
All right. Well, congratulations again, and thank you very, very much. Maku, any further questions?
Not further. I think that was a very detailed interview.
Yeah, thank you, Danny. And then on to Sven Zerner, who also joins us here in the box for interviews post-race. And Sven, the only driver to make the two-stop strategy really work, perhaps the only one brave enough to go for it. Was that something you were planning on from the very start?
No, absolutely not. After I fucked up the qualifying so badly, I thought, okay, now it's time to do anything else. So I tried to undercut, but just doing something different than everyone. So as I saw on lap, I think 60, nobody pitted. I went for it. Yeah, I had a really good soft run. It was only point like every lap. So that helped me massive at the end for the time. Sadly, I got a penalty because two guys pushed me wide while battling. I mean, that happens, but the game gave me two penalties. Otherwise, I would be warning, only one warning I had in the whole race. So yeah, but after the first laps, I saw Danny's already taking out of DRS there. I knew, okay, that's the win. So yeah.
You know, at what point did you was it sort of, how many laps into the soft stint did you realize that a really good result was on the cards? Were you always thinking of second place when you went for that two-stop, or were you just thinking, let's just see what happens?
Nah, it's I did a massive undercut about 5, 6, 7 seconds to the in the group I was to this group again. So yeah, there I knew, okay, it's all about the pace you got in this stint right now. That will make the difference if I can hold the gap or if I lose out. That stint was good. I gave it everything there. Worked out fine. No mistakes, no warnings, nothing. Yeah. After the stint, I knew, okay, just make it clean. Don't lose the wing, and you will have it. You will have the P2. I mean, Danny was out of reach after like 4 laps.
Yeah. Indeed, yeah. And I guess also you mentioned qualifying not going your way. Where do you think you would have been if where did you think your potential was in qualifying?
I mean, in every practice session, I could do a 0.7, and my last lap, I did a cut there, fucked it up. There's always a what if, but in the end, it is what you can do in this moment. So it was P7.
Fair enough. I think that's a very good attitude to have towards it. And congratulations on such a positive result despite the qualifying and going for the brave strategy as well. Maku, again, any further questions from yourself?
I think that was mostly, or that was about it, what you can tell us about the race. So great job managing from P7 to P2, so congratulations to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Indeed, and thank you guys all for watching as well. I think that's going to be it from us for interviews today, so that should be wrapping up the show as well. It was a very interesting race, a rather different race to what we're used to seeing, but I definitely enjoyed it. It was a good taste of what we can expect to come for ORL Split A Season 14. So thank you guys again for watching, and I hope you all have a good night.
Good night, everyone, and I hope to see you again. Until then, bye-bye.